Welcome to the third video in this four-part series on EdTPA Task 4. This video is focused on the assessment commentary prompt 2, which is where you will be looking at the work of 3 focus students. And as you think about our progression, what we've done so far, in the introductory video, we talked about the context for learning, very similar to literacy. You develop a 3-lesson sequence, and then you develop the assessment. And there, the development of the assessment was crucial as you thought about analyzing student work for conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, and mathematical reasoning and problem solving. Then in the second video, we analyzed the results of a whole group assessment. In other words, how do I talk about the whole group? How do I describe group performance on an assessment? This video is focused on your 3 focus students. Focus students that as you look at it, as you describe those focus students, EdTPA says at least one of those focus students must have specific learning needs. Whether they're students on an IEP, a 504 plan, an English language learner, a struggling reader, underperforming student, or a gifted and talented student needing extra support and challenge. So you have 3 focus students, and as you think about those 3 focus students, you want your lesson, you want your objective to be singularly focused. You do not want to have those 3 students doing 3 different tasks, trying to meet 3 different objectives. Focus on one objective and determine that objective based on the results of your assessment. This task is going to emphasize work samples. Specifically, you will be required to submit evidence of the 3 students' work. And based on those 3 work samples, you are to conduct an analysis looking for their mathematical understanding, the concept that they're missing, that they're understanding. Cite specific evidence from their work samples to talk about their mathematical errors, confusions, partial general understandings. This is not a place to talk in general terms. This is a place where you want to drill down and focus and say, here's what my students are not understanding. That's the focus of commentary prompt 2A, B, and C. A highlighted part of the Elementary Education Handbook for Task 4 says this: what do the students' errors tell you about their mathematical understanding? In other words, it's not enough to say they made this mistake. You need to ask yourself and ask the student's work, what is their underlying misconception? The example they give here is one concerning subtraction. Is it regrouping? Is it the meaning of subtraction? Is it subtraction the inverse of addition? Is their problem more one with place value? Do they, as they look at their answers, do they ask and see if they're reasonable? So you're digging down to seek to understand the mathematical understanding of your students. And here it just talks about video or commentary or audio work sample. Resources. So have these resources available as we go through this. Commentary prompts, 2A, 2B, 2C. Rubric 17, your rubric progression for rubric 17. Making good choices, the task 4 addendum, and pay attention to that key decisions chart on pages 2 and 3. All of those are valuable resources for you. Our goal is a 3 at least. Ideally, we shoot for a 4 or a 5. A 3 is your minimum. 3 says candidate uses evidence from the 3 focus work samples from the 3 focus student work samples to identify the specific student struggles, errors, confusions, or partial understandings. So here the focus is evidence, and you want to identify what's going on in the student's mind. If you look at a 4, level 4 asks you to explain a little bit more what's going on in their minds. If you look down at the rubric progression, candidate has to use examples from the student's work. You cannot just make a general statement. Specific struggles. They want you to drill down and find out what's going on. And then those struggles are clearly identified in terms of the error, the confusion, or the partial understanding. So as we think about doing this task, keywords, evidence, specific struggles, and we're going to have 3 focus students, Ben, Brittany, and Matt. And for this task, any one of them could fulfill my role of a learning disabled student, a student on a 504 plan, an English language learner. All 3, when they took the class assessment, scored the lowest in the class. And so we want to look at their work samples. What are the patterns of their work? So as part of your progress, part of your work on this part of the task, you will upload their actual work samples. This is Matt's. As you look at Matt and as you look at his work, you can notice some interesting things. Numbers 1 and number 5, very similar processes he uses. You see also a relationship in number 4 to what he did in 1 and 5. He does have some idea about equivalent fractions, as you see down in number 5. At least he knows to multiply the top and bottom numbers by the same number. Doesn't know why, but he's got that procedure. So that's just roughly about Matt. You look at Ben. Ben has very similar mistakes on 1, 4, and 5. Now what's interesting is if you look down at number 3 on Ben's, he talks about a fraction bar, and somehow he says that 3/4 is equal to 1/2. That might be a place where you'd love to talk to Ben more, but what you have is his work here. Then if you look at number 4, he does understand the quantity or the size represented by 4/5 and 5/6. So as you look at Ben's work, you're seeing some gaps, you're seeing some inconsistencies, and your task is to ask, what's going on? Then as we look at Brittany, our 3rd student, very similar to Matt. If you look down at her equivalent fraction, she said 4/3. Was equivalent to 3/4 because you're using the same number. If you look at the rest of her work tied into that, you look at number 1, number 4, number 5, there's something going on about her understanding of fractions. Does she really know what a fraction is? Does she really have the understanding of a whole, which is important in fractions? So we've just done a very cursory look at their work. As you think about your work of analysis, you're looking at it very deeply. You would want to look at all 7 problems, all elements of your assessment. What are the parallels? What are the patterns? What are the similarities? And so then we move and think about our commentary analysis. Once again, think integration. You want to talk about the question type, the content of the question, the level of performance. Don't rely on your evaluator to go back and read. Give them something to build their understanding of what you're doing. Possible analysis. You're looking at problems 1 and 5 here. It says that it was a focused procedural fluency. All they were asked to do was add 2 fractions. One fraction involved like denominators, while the other task was unlike denominators. In both situations, all 3 students treated the numerators and denominators as whole numbers. They did not see them as integral parts of a fraction. They didn't have that understanding. It shows that they know their basic facts. There is one question about whether Matt knew completely because he had a minor addition error. But overall, they understand their basic facts, but they treat the fractions as if they're adding whole numbers, not fractions. And you can read here a little bit more of how to explain it. A second one, this is an example of how to look at a single problem. We made reference to this when we were looking at Ben's, because we said that Ben recognized that there was a quantity close to 1 for both 4/5 and 5/6. He recognized there was something that was near 1, so that if he added those 2 together, it'd be greater than 1. However, Matt and Brittany continued their process of seeing the fractions as simply whole numbers with a line between them, because they added the numerators and to get the numerators together and the denominators together and came up with their answer. So as you look here, this was a type of problem that was looking for conceptual understanding. Ben showed conceptual understanding about the size of the fraction, the quantity. Matt and Brittany took a more procedural fluency approach. While they were fluent in their basic facts, they were incorrect in how to add fractions. But that's still adding another piece. And then we look at another way to think about it. And these questions are not these analyses are not intended to cover everything that could be covered on the exam. As you look at problems 6 and 7, feel free to go back and look at those. Both of them involved addition of fractions. Well, one involved addition of 2 fractions with unlike denominators. The other involved comparing fractions that had unlike denominators. As you look at their work, all of the students were able to interpret a fraction as a part of a whole. In other words, 3 out of 4 parts shaded for 3/4. But what they did not realize is that when you're adding fractions, when you're comparing fractions, you have to be dealing with the same whole. They don't have the concept of a whole and fraction. Instead, they've got the idea that, oh, it's always something like 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 shaded. And the whole is situation specific. 3/4, the whole, as long as I got 4 spaces, I'm fine. 5/6, as long as I got 6 spaces, I'm fine. The actual size of the whole does not matter. which is a serious misconception when you think about adding, subtracting, comparing, multiplying, dividing. Whatever we do with fractions, the size of the whole and what whole we're talking about does matter. So in the last 3 slides, you've seen some ways to analyze the work of 3 students. Remember, as you think about that analysis, specific examples tied into their work samples. And so as we close this video, we look ahead to the 4th one. The 4th one is focused on the re-engagement lesson. The objective for that re-engagement lesson is drawn from this analysis, from our analysis of how the students performed on the assessment. And on the basis of that analysis, we develop an objective, we develop a re-engagement lesson, we teach that lesson, then we evaluate our students' learning, and we evaluate our teaching. That will be covered in the 4th video. Thank you.